Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am your host, Courtney Anderson. Today's show is part of our series, Financial Fierceness. And this is all about the fact that we are not going to be able to practice the joyful art of business, to surpass our goals, if we don't have our financial house in order. We don't feel content with our finances. And one large part of our finances typically is that we have some security in our physical environment where we live. So, for many of us, when we look at our physical environment and feeling secure, safe, free to be creative and explore who we truly are, many of us find eventually at some point in our lives that we'd like to own our own place. The idea of owning our own place, whether it's a condo or a duplex, a multifamily unit, a single family home, is the idea that, and it's my castle. I may not have been born a king or a queen, but in my little corner of the world, I can do as I want. I can paint it whatever color I want. I can decorate it any way that I want to. I can watch whatever TV or movies I want and use the remote control how I want to. I can listen to whatever music I want to, as loud or as quietly as I want to. I can do what I want to. If I want to have a dance party in my living room, I can. If I want to make food that nobody else likes, I can. My place. And there's a lot of 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 space and safety for us to become creative, to explore who we are, and it allows us that little part of the world where, we can just truly let our hair down and be ourselves. This is me, totally as I am. This is my place. And we also get to determine who comes in that place. Are we going to let somebody in there who might try to have bad intentions toward us or be abusive? No. This is our place. We're safe. And we get to decide who comes into our little kingdom or queendom. And so, for many reasons, we go and we decide that we want to have our own place. And I've done a show on trying to decide, if you want to get a place, and if you do, how do you buy your first house, next house, or best house? So you can listen to that for a little bit more insight in that process of how do I decide if that's what I want. But for those of us who have decided that we are going to have our own little corner of the world, that's our little place. Then we talk about how we do that. And I did some of that in that other episode I referenced where we talked about how to buy your first house, next house, or best house. But what about for those of us where we decide that we want to go ahead and do this? This is our decision. We've made our decision. We want to buy our own place. And we know absolutely positively how we're going to do it. Are we going to buy cash? Are we going to borrow money and have a mortgage? And we work that out. And now we're out there in real life and we're ready to go ahead and get our place. And we're encountering some weird or inappropriate or sometimes illegal feedback. And it is hindering our ability to accomplish surpassing our goal of getting our place. So that's the purpose of this show. This show is how to buy a home with challenges, credit, single, etc. And what I mean by that is this. Once we decide why we want to buy a home, right? That's our first step, and we talked about that in the other episode about how to buy a home. And then we decide how we're going to do it. Are we going to pay cash? Are we going to get a mortgage? Are we going to get a mortgage with a set payment, a set interest rate? Or are we going to get a mortgage that adjusts the interest rate so our payments will change? We talked about that in the other episode. Once we go through all of that, there's still the reality where the rubber meets the road. Excuse me, where in real life I've made all my other decisions. I've got my finances together. I understand what I'm doing, whether I'm either paying cash or I'm going to borrow money. And I've decided how much money I'm going to spend per month on my housing expenses. And I'm ready to go get my house. And we get out there, we're ready to go do it. And we have some weird roadblocks and obstacles. So that's what this show is about. Let me share some anecdotes. All right. So many years ago, I go to buy my first home. So I think I was 26 years old, somewhere around there. So I'm a little on the younger side. Age is all relative, right? But I'm not um, 66. I'm 26, and that's okay. I thought we can never control our age. So here I am, and I go out into the world, and I've done all the things. I made the decision that I wanted to have a house, and I thought, the reasons why I wanted to have space for my imaginary pet that I had dreamed of having, but I felt like I wanted to have my own place in a little yard before I got a pet. And I looked at my finances, and I knew how much I'd feel comfortable spending on my monthly payment. And at that point, I've already opened my law office, so I'm already running my little business, and I'm just going on with my life and feeling, pretty excited. So here I am, and I'm out looking at houses. And all right, let me do it this way. Let's start with the looking for houses part. I never used a realtor in my first house and my second house. I never purchased houses with realtors, and here's part of why. Um, it has happened to me that I have consulted with realtors who I didn't hire, and the realtor would sort of talk to me on the phone and be you know, pretty professional and give me some, listen to some of my ideas about what I wanted. And I'm always very specific. I never go out to purchase something on a whim, especially something big like a home. So I know exactly what I want. So I always want a one-story house just because I don't really like stairs. I'm always scared I'll fall or trip. and and I have bad knees, meaning that my kneecaps were set too high when I was formed and born as a little baby. They were sort of, I was born with sort of my kneecaps in the wrong place. And so anyway, for many reasons, I like one stories. Okay, so I know I like one stories. I know what kind of colors I like. I know what kind of layouts I like. Okay, et cetera, et cetera. So I've had interactions with realtors where when I'll talk to them on the phone, they'll give me sort of, one feedback and sort of talking about certain areas of town. And then when I'll go and meet with people in person, they'll start suggesting totally different areas of town that don't have anything related to the issues I brought up about what type of, one story and what type of school district I wanted. And I mentioned in the show notes something called redlining. And this is a U.S. focused issue, but it happens all over the world. And in general, redlining is the idea that societies had different groups of people, and the power brokers in society would determine where they thought different groups of people should live. And then they would make decisions like loaning money to buy a home, approving insurance, and all different types of decisions to ensure, to set up so that certain types of people lived in certain areas that the power brokers in society had determined where the right place for them to live. So in some parts of the U.S., you'll see this today. You'll see parts of town where people will say, "Oh, that's Chinatown, or that's little Haiti, or that's the part of town where all Hispanic people live or all Black people live." And all of this is blatantly illegal. It's against the law in the U.S. and it's against the law in most parts of the world for you to tell me that I have money and that you're only going to show me houses in certain neighborhoods where you think I should live based on my outward appearance or my color or my ethnicity. But this was an absolutely consistent practice in the United States, all over the United States, not just in the geographic south of the United States, but all over every single part of the US, where different parts of areas were designed. And then that's where realtors showed people places, that's where banks would lend money, and that's where people were able to get insurance, all in that one area where everyone decided that everyone who was in power decided that's where those people, quote unquote, should live. This is not something that's illegal, but in my own life experience, I've had it happen where I go and I meet a realtor and they start showing me things that aren't, they're not listening to me. They're sort of telling me to go to the area where they think people who look like me are supposed to live. And that is illegal. But I'm not going to stand there and argue with a realtor and, go file a lawsuit against them. I have to take too much time. So part of the process when you want to buy a house is that people, unfortunately, when you rely on other people, then you're going to have to, unfortunately, potentially encounter some of these obstacles. And this has happened in recent times. So it's not like I'm describing a situation in the 1940s that happened to me. Because I wasn't alive then. But in very, very recent times. So one of the reasons I don't usually use realtors, I used one time when I bought a house just because I was new to an area and I was trying to make sure I didn't miss something that might be a great area. But I always look for houses myself. And now at the internet, there's, so many different software programs out there, and, Trulia and Zillow and all types of programs where you can just go and look yourself and find different houses in areas you're interested in. But the first thing you need to be aware of is you're going to buy a house. Now, when I made the title for this program, and it's, how to buy a home with challenges. These aren't actually our challenges. It's not my challenge or your challenge. These are what other people think are challenges. These are perceived challenges. I can't control, though, other people's perception, and I'm just sharing a reality that, in my own life experience, it's not been obstacle free going to buy homes, and I've bought several homes now, and so that's part of why I put this program together. Is it's real. So part of it is when you go to look for a home, we go through, everybody goes through the same process, right? Why do I want a home? Right? How do I decide if I'm going to pay for one in cash or borrow money? We're all doing the same thing. And then we're going to go decide, which home, which one do I like? What one, is the right feeling? I do believe you get a feeling about a property at some point, especially if it's one you're living in, not just an investment. But there's obstacles. So one of my favorite anecdotes was I went out this is about 10 years ago. So I went out and I was buying a home, not my first home, but a subsequent home. So now I really feel like I know what I'm doing. And I like to get newer homes usually. And there were what they call spec homes. Spec homes are builders will go out and they'll build a home, and it's a speculative house, meaning they don't have a buyer for it. They're just going to build it. Sometimes they're trying to show off a floor plan. It's a model home potentially. And so there's a home, the builder's totally built it, usually put in, upgrades and everything, and then it just sits there and the builder's trying to move it because the builder has to pay all the costs on this property, right? And so an empty spec home is not what a builder wants. Ideally, a builder would like to build a house that's already under contract, meaning that somebody's come, said I want this house, and then they sign a contract and they put a down payment, and they show that they've been approved for the purchase. Either they have the money in the bank, or a bank said that they'll loan it to them, and then the builder goes and starts building it after the builder knows they have a customer, right, and that the customer is going to go ahead and buy it, ideally. Now, in real life, a lot of times people sign contracts for houses, and then everything sort of falls apart, and they're not able to close, and the builder still has to hold that spec house that's already built, and that's not what a builder wants. So, a few years ago, I went out and I was getting ready to get another house I was going to live in. So when it's a house I'm going to live in versus an investment, then I'm really, really particular, right? Because I have to have the right energy and flow in the house because I'm going to be living there. It's going to be my little castle. So I went, and there were two different builders that had spec houses. They both had one-story houses that were already built. One had been a model home, and the other one had been a home they built for somebody, and then the person, couldn't go through with the purchase, so it was just sort of sitting there waiting for somebody else to come along and buy it. And they were really close to each other. I mean, they were, less than a mile apart. Two totally different builders. So I went to each builder and I started negotiating with them. So this is my normal way when I buy houses. I don't use realtors because of some of the things I've mentioned where the realtor's not listening to me. And then the realtor starts trying to tell me what they think I should do, which is that's the opposite of how the relationship's supposed to work. The relationship's supposed to work. I told you what I'm getting, and then you either go find that for me, or we wait until I find it and then we'll talk about it. But don't bring me something I don't want. So anyway, to alleviate that, I usually just never use realtors. So anyway, I go to both of the spec homes, and all these builders have reps, representatives that work for their company that are there on site trying to sell these houses. So I'm talking to and these people are realtors too. So I'm talking to the realtor who works for the builder, and I'm saying, yeah, I love this house. And then I started to tell both of the different builders, representatives, I kept saying, I really love your house, but if only I could get the price, $5,000 lower, it sure would help. And then I would tell them, that I'm also looking at this other one-story house, that's like less than a mile away that the other builder built. And I would say to them, those people told me that they're going to move the price to, whatever number. And if you would move your price, then I think that this might be the right house. What I was doing was negotiating, right? And I was playing the two builders off of each other because and it was the truth. It's not none of it was pretend or, a falsification. I was telling them the truth. I was going to see, which builder would give me a better deal, and then I would buy that house. That's the truth. So I'm going back and forth, back and forth. I'm spending a lot of time on site at the different houses, walking around and making sure that I feel comfortable and all of this. And the houses were different sizes. There was about a 500 square foot difference between the houses. So one day I'm standing there with the realtor at the house that was 500 square feet smaller than the other house. Okay, so the house itself was 500 square feet smaller than this other house, but it was on a larger lot. So in a way, it kind of equalized it. Because in theory, if I had a larger lot, I could, build, an extension or something and kind of make up for the square footage in theory. So I'm telling that realtor and I'm saying, oh, you guys have moved on the price, but there's just some other concessions I would need. I was trying to get people to prepay like, property taxes. I was doing everything I could to get a good deal for myself, which is what you're supposed to do. So I guess this realtor was just getting angrier and angrier. And so finally she says something to me like, something like, well, it's just you in this house. So you don't need all that space anyway. Wow. That actually kind of hurt my feelings. Actually, and it was inaccurate because at that point I had my dog, so it wasn't just me. It was going to be me and my dog. So that was inaccurate that she said that, but it hurt my feelings. But more importantly than hurting my feelings, it made it clear what house I was going to buy because I was spending several hundred thousand dollars on this purchase. And when this realtor, a buyer's rep, says to me, it's just me, I don't need all that space, because she knew her house obviously was 500 square feet smaller than the other house, because I kept bringing that up every time I was trying to negotiate with them to give me more concessions, better pricing, and all this kind of, throw in, window coverings. I was getting, I got a great deal at the end. But the moment she said that to me, I thought, wow, it's your decision to decide how many square feet I want to live in, or depending on where you live in the world, square meters. I can live in whatever size I want. It's up to me. This is my decision. And you're going to say that to me and just and make me feel bad because I don't have, I don't know, a couple of kids or a spouse or something? Really? You're discriminating against me because I'm single? You're making me feel bad and hurt my feelings? I just couldn't believe it. I don't mean I couldn't believe it that she would say that, but I couldn't believe somebody who has somebody standing there who's getting ready to sign the final deal to spend several $100,000 to buy one of these spec homes. I couldn't believe she would literally tell me to my face that I wasn't worth more square footage because my family is not, I guess, appropriate. And in doing so, of course, she killed the deal. I mean, that was it. And she said that, it was done. I don't care what the house would have been. Because now she made me so mad. I'm not going to give those people several $100,000 of my money. That's ridiculous. So that's a real life anecdote. I'm still mad about it, obviously, because when I talk about it, it makes me angry. Another example, a couple years before that. So the first part is you got to be able to find a place. Be aware of discrimination, whether it's just blatantly illegal, like, hey, we'll show you Chinatown because you look to us like you might be Chinese, which is racist and illegal on every level, but it happens. I mean, it still happens. So be aware. I'm not kidding. And the easiest way to get around it is just go find your own place. What part of town do you like? And make your decision. And then you're not screwing around with somebody else. You're not dealing with someone else who's putting an obstacle in your way when you want to. It should be a happy time. Going out to find a place that I want to live in should be a happy time for me. I shouldn't have to listen to negativity based on whether someone says my family size is incorrect, or me being single is incorrect, or me looking the way I look is incorrect. That's none of their business. Their only legal obligation is to provide their service, treat me as they treat all their other customers, and go on with whatever professional tasks. It's not for them to be in judgment of who I am and what I look like and how I live my life. So that my usual way that I get around this is I just don't use them. I don't go to realtors because I feel like I can go get all the information I want myself, and I can go drive around looking at houses myself. And if I really, really want to, see a property, I'll just contact the realtor that's selling it. It also saves me money, and I've never had an experience where I've seen that it's beneficial. Every house I've purchased, I did use a realtor on one of them, but I still found it myself. So um, I think you can, at a minimum, find the house yourself. Maybe you want to get a realtor to help you negotiate it, but that's a separate part of the deal. The first part is finding the houses you want to make offers on. That you can do on your own. And if you do it on your own, you'll avoid all these silly, stupid discussions about other people's perception of what you should have. It's your money. If you have the money and you want to get a 30,000 square foot place for you, do it. If you have the resources and feel like you deserve to have a 500 square foot place because it makes you comfortable, do it. It's nobody's business. The other part of it is, of course, when you go to get your if you're going to get financing, um, you want to make sure that you do everything in your power to minimize these types of behaviors people might have where they make judgments that are illegal, but it's still not going to help you that it's illegal at that moment when you're trying to get stuff done. So the first time I went to buy my first house, I was, like I said, in my mid to late 20s. And I had my own little business I'd started, but that's not something that lenders usually like. They don't like to see somebody who's pretty new self-employed because it's hard for them to figure out if you're going to make any money or be broke. They're trying to figure out if you're, a safe risk. And I also, which I'll elaborate in other programs, had some very not good I'd had some very rocky financial problems way early in my life, and so had not good credit at all at this point. Um, so here we are. I've got poor credit. I don't even technically have a job, right? Like I have a brand new business I've started literally like within 6 months of going out, deciding I'm going to buy my first house. And none of this makes lenders happy. Like it all is like the worst case scenario. You add on top of that I was really young, relatively speaking, and I looked young. And on top of that, I was single, which of course I still am, just myself and my beautiful dogs. And you add on top of that my ethnicity and color, and it's just like the worst. I guess one of the worst scenarios a lender could have. Now on the other side, you have to understand this: my income was very high, relatively speaking, and my credit had been very poor years before because of some situations. Many of which were beyond my control with family members and other things. But on my own, I'd been rebuilding my credit, so I hadn't had any late pays or anything on my own in years. You also have to understand, so I've got really good income, no late pays, and I had a lot of cash that I was going to be putting into the deal. So here we go. I go and I initially went and just like looked in the, and found like a mortgage broker like close to, my office, and like just went into an office and was like, mortgage, broker so and so. And went in there, met with some lady. And so when we start talking about these basics, right, well, how long have you been at your job? And I'm like, well, it's my own little company. It's been about 6 months. Oh, she starts asking about my financial past. And I tell her like a few years ago, there'd been some serious financial problems. And so because of that, my credit score was low. But that, since those issues had been addressed on my own, my credit was, I have no late pays recently, and I, have high income and all that kind of good stuff. And she's looking at me, right? So she didn't even finish the rest of the application, the question. She just sort of stopped and she looked at me and she said something like, dear, there's no one at all who will loan you any money right now. So I just suggest that you go and, take a couple of years and build up, some of these issues and then look at this in a few years. And it really, again, kind of hurt my feelings for about, 10 seconds, just like the other lady that told me I didn't need a big house. And then I just realized that she was telling me she's the wrong person to talk to. Because here's the thing. I said in the show notes, if you have income, and I do mean this, it's some kind of, legitimate income, right? So it's not a criminal enterprise. But you have income, so job, a business, something. And you don't have late pays like right now. Like you're not behind on bills like right now, right? So the longer it's been since you've been late on something, the better. And even if you have bankruptcies and other horrible things, as long as they're, a little bit in the past, some kind of income, some kind of credit, right? So not that you have no credit score, right? But you have, you have some credit score. And like I said, that there's more and more time between you and whatever bad things happened in the past where you've been paying on time and you're paying on time currently right now and everything. You're going to get some kind of money. Somebody's going to approve you for something. Now, they're not going to approve you for, a $20 million, financing on $3,000 a month in income. You have to be realistic about the numbers, and you also have to realize what can you pay. But if you're looking at, especially the interest rates are so low right now when I'm recording the show relative to when I bought this first house, they're basically half of what they were when I bought my first house, the interest rates. So my point is this: if you can spend $600 a month, and you look at what interest rates are, and you can go anywhere online and look and see what an average interest rate is for average credit, poor credit, and awesome credit, and it'll give you a range. And then you can calculate, if you borrowed $100,000 or any other number, it'll tell you what the payment would be. And then you can say to yourself, can I swing, $450 a month? Can I swing $1,200 a month based on what I make? And, based on how I've been doing recently with my finances, paying everything on time? And the answer should be yes at some number, and somebody somewhere will loan that to you because that's what they want to do, is make loans. The problem I think sometimes is when people see us, when they see us, they start making all these other decisions that have nothing to do with who we are. They're just what they think about us. So to make a long story short, after I went to this first person who told me there was no way I was going to ever get a loan at this time in my life, I went and found another lender who at that point I found on the internet, and the lender was out of town, so I didn't have to meet with them in person. I just talked to him on the phone. And on the phone, I explained everything. She talked about my new business, said, send him my bank statement showing how much my income was, explain to him, how long I've been current on all of my bills, and that, these other bad things that happened in the past had been fixed and never will happen again. And he was like, absolutely, let's get you approved. And he did. And I bought a house. Literally, I'm not lying, like 10 days. Within 10 days of this lady telling me there's no way in the world that anyone would ever loan me money, I got a mortgage broker who shopped me to several different lenders, got me an approval, and I was in my house and I closed. Closed meaning I went to a title company, signed a whole bunch of paperwork, and got the keys to my house. Because the house that I bought, this house was also already pre-built. It was also a spec home. I love pre-built houses. Um, and brand new, and I got my house. So clearly the first lady who says to me you'll never get a home is wrong, because I just went and borrowed money. Now let's say this though, when I found that other person who I was out of town and I just talked on the phone and then faxed over, emailed my documents, I will say this. I did see that on the paperwork that he submitted, they asked for people to voluntarily identify your race or ethnicity. You don't have to, but they ask if you do, because they help, government tracks a lot of the data on these things. I actually had put down that I was black or African American, but I noticed that the person had changed, the mortgage person had changed that and put down that I was white. Now, that's not legal. They're not supposed to change the paperwork you give them. And I will tell you that I knew that. I actually changed it back on some of the paperwork that I saw, sent it back in, and then sure enough, when I got to the title company to close, it was the same change had happened again, where it said I was a different ethnicity. So that said I was, white. At that point, the title company, I was just signing the paperwork to go ahead and get my house keys, and I'm not going to fight it, but it was wrong and it was illegal. I don't know why the mortgage broker thought that he had to do that to get the approval. That says a lot about the system, and this was not that long ago. But the reality is, what I do now when I go, like I talked about, when I go look at properties, I don't use a realtor, so I don't have to argue with them about where they think I should live. I'll just go look and see what I want, and then that fixes that problem with them getting in my way. With the finance part, the most recent house I bought, which I bought very recently, now everything's online. So found online. I went online. I went to a big bank. I actually went to Bank of America. I'll give a positive Bank of America story. I've been a long time customer for banking and other financial things. I put in my information. I emailed it over. I talked on the phone to the loan processor person on the case file. Never met anybody in person at all until I went to closing. But the correct paperwork was checked. The right boxes were checked with my ethnicity. Nothing was changed. And I got a 3%, 3.7% interest rate, which was a great deal, fixed. And it was seamless in terms of the process. There were some holdups sometimes with changing the closing date a little bit, because they kept coming back and asking for a few more data, but there was no problem at all with any of this other stuff about somebody telling me what I can and can't have, and having some sort of issue with race or ethnicity or color or family status or any of that kind of stuff. So part of the technology has helped fix a lot of these problems, so that people, they don't see you, so it prevents them from having to say some of the stuff to you. And also, if you don't even talk to them on the phone often, you just put things in writing. It's really helpful. One thing I do when I go to buy a house is I get all of my paperwork together before I even submit an application file, because I know everything that the lender looks for. I know everything that is going to be necessary, and I just get all my paperwork together, all my bank statements, if there's any explanations about changing in my income, on my taxes, I put it all together in a little package, and I itemize and organize it. Here's exhibit 1, exhibit 2, exhibit 3. I explain it all, and then boom, they have everything they need from the beginning. And then this last home that I purchased, the banker said to me, we've never seen anything this complete, this organized, and it made our lives easy. And I said, yeah, it makes my life easy, right? So one of the things, again, on the looking for property, I just look on it for my own, that avoids somebody else saying something inappropriate or trying to hurt my feelings or be an obstacle to me spending my money to be happy, with their own either jealousy or discrimination issues or anti-single people policies or whatever is wrong with them. And then on the financing part, if you're going to borrow money, at this point you could just do most of it online. So that also alleviates a lot of this, I think. It's kind of sad that this is even a discussion, but I've dealt with this every single time. And I've purchased and held, times 7 figures in real estate. This is not a joke. And I'm still a landlord. And I just know that it'll make my life easier if I fix these problems ahead of time, and I'm not listening to somebody tell me, at any point in my life, whether I was in my 20s or the age I am now or in my future, what I can do with my money. And in the show notes, I said it in the show notes, you have the right to buy the home you want in the area you want with the money you have. And do not let other people and their issues get in your way. That's real. So if somebody tells you no, you have to understand that there's always a yes, and there's all kind of government programs and all kind of issues. If but you got to be realistic. They're not going to give you something that you can't pay for. They're not going to prove that. But if you have income and you have decent credit and you're current on what you have, you can get a loan if you really need a loan, or you can save the money, obviously, and that's a different process. But understand it's real that people will make decisions and try to prevent you from moving forward with your dreams, and you cannot let them. Think ahead, be strategic, feel sorry for someone because they're horrible business people, obviously, when they discriminate, and keep going. And I'd love for people to share with me any feedback or emails or anything about how they were successful in obtaining the home of their current dreams, and going forward with success. And we must find ways to be, again, strategic, and never ever give up, that we're valid customers and that we deserve absolutely the best that we can achieve in life. So come to CourtneyAnderson.com, and thank you so much for joining me.